Okay, so the last topics for our week 5 are business math, business and consumer loans, as well as solving problems on business and consumer loans. Okay, so actually, this one, yung solving part, you need to apply all those formulas na napag-aralan natin, finding the present value, the future value, diba? Yan, kasama yan sa mga formula na pwede natin gamitin for this morning's topic. So I hope na medyo naliwanagan na kayo with last week's topic. Ano po? Okay, so here are the objectives for today's lessons. Yan. So you need to define loans and its related and distinguish the difference between the two. And then of course, we'll try to solve a real life example on where and when to apply this business and consumer loans. And so to start with the discussion, sana hindi. So kindly watch this short clip and try to take note of some terms that you will encounter as you watch this video clip. Wait lang natin, matagal mag-load ha. Alam niyo naman pag live, as medyo mahangin pa, nadadala-dala ang ating bandwidth ng ating internet. Ayaw pa mag-open niya. Baka sakali magpe-play na kaya pinaliit ko muna. Loading, loading, loading. Atan? And watch this on YouTube naman po. Sana may sound. Hintayin lang natin ha. Na-play na kanina. So this is all about loan basics. Ano po? Ang discussion natin for this morning. Natin pag i-diretso ko mamaya sa ano, sa YouTube.
Loan time. Hi.
How loans work. I can rely individual property, ours, and payday loans. They're kind of the worst. Totally. That's a percentage that you're finding. There's the term. Right. Depending on whether or not valuable that they'll let back. It's a goal.
That sounds scary.
Usually have lower loan. Don't worry, little dudette. They're only scary.
Great.
Interest rates are like ocean tides. They're in knows how they add a factor interest by your credit score and the B. Look for things that employment history helps ending relationship.
Cosine.
A cop out on your loan.
Putol-tuloy. So, kino-compare natin yung loan sa surfing. Ano itong gawin? Yung secured and unsecured loans, mamaya ma-encounter natin. Ano yung terms na ginamit natin for this session? So, hindi secured and unsecured yung ginamit, but instead, our main topic, which is about business and consumer. Ayaw na niya mag-play. Okay, so anyways, can you chat this short video clip? Yung mga natanda, short na pinanood. Walang una, may first winner na tayo sa ating chat box. Aba, Melvin, yan lang na ano mo, mortgage lang. O, dinagdagan ni Melvin. More terms. Yan, parang medyo ayaw na niya talaga na mag-load. Ano po? Wala na, yung dalawa lang ni ano, may chat. Si Melvin at saka si dalawang kulot. Yan, may dumagdag pa tayo, kaya lang ayaw mabuksan sa akin. Okay, thank you for laptop. May mga chat dito. Yan. Siyempre, nandiyan yung word na mortgage, secured, and unsecured loan. Ano pa yung mga words natin na na-encounter? Nandun yung words like collateral. Nandun yung words like collateral. Yan. So, dapat ninyo maintindihan. Okay, si Shelo, collateral, cosigner, the interest. Yan, madami-dami ang mga nakuha nila. Si Eunice, collateral, Nico, loans, principal, interest, mortgage, payday loans, car loans, house loans, diba? So those are the different terms na encounter natin. So bakit ko sa inyo pinapanood yun? Kasi those are just basic concepts when it comes to loans. So don't have a negative concept about loans. Ano po? So hindi lahat ng loans ay negative. Okay? So saan ba nagsimula yung mga mayayaman natin ng mga entrepreneurs? So syempre, di ba, siya ay sa pamagitan din ng di ba po to some of the video clip that you have watched? So we have there the main term, which is loan. So pag sinabi natin loan, it's a financial obligation of paying some money. So dyan lumalabas yung sinasabi natin na yung borrower, di ba? At saka yung lender, hiram at nanghiram. Yung nangutang at yung nagpapautang. Okay? And then when we say loan, used to finance a business, buy a car, yan, or for house improvement. And with this loan proceeds, dito natin ma-identify alin yung tinatawag natin na business loan, alin yung tinatawag natin na consumer loan. Okay? So ito yung from the amount of money na inutang ninyo, na niloan ninyo, yun yung makukuha ninyo. And sabi nga dito, it can be used as a business capital, or you can buy a car or any improvement sa house ninyo, or probably pwede rin na pang-pay ng college tuition. Okay? Then we have there the amortization, which is a gradual extinction of a debt, principal, interest by sequence of equal periodic payments or installment payments due at the ends of equal intervals of time. So yung unti-unting nababawas, di ba, yung monthly na nagbabayad ka dun sa niloan mo, yan, yung monthly amortization na tinatawag, na nababawas dun sa main principal din. Okay? Then what is business and consumer loan? Okay, so this is the difference between the two. When we say business, fund a company's operating expenses and other financial needs, meaning kaya nga siya tinawag na business. It's a loan which can be used in a business. So pwedeng i-finance kung ano man yung operating. Yeah. So as I continue, so sabi nga natin pag business loan, so yun yung nagagamit sa business. And consumer, like personal, buying a car or household repairs, yan. Yun mga tinatawag natin na consumer loan. And then of course, with collateral, but most of the time sa business loan merong collateral talaga. So ano yung sinasabi natin collateral? So from the video clip na napanood ninyo, yun yung mga assets ninyo like your house title or yung car ninyo, yan. Yun yung collateral ninyo just to secure your loan na if in case you were not able to pay your loan on the due date, so yun yung magiging kapalit na bayad. Ano po? And then we have the term of the loan. It's the time, of course, to pay the entire loan. Okay. Okay, so this is the difference. Malaki yung hinihingi collateral. Sa consumer loan, pwede. or most of the time, hindi sila nagre-require ng collateral. Ang nire-require lang nila, minsan, minsan din is yung guarantor. Pero mas malaki dapat yung guarantor sa business loan. Yan. Yun ang kailangan. Then when it comes to documents, mas marami yung sinasubmit ng lendee or ng borrower dun sa business loan. Kasi dapat may income tax din dyan. Sa consumer loan naman, konti lang. Depende sa establishment ng utangan. So merong iba na certificate or yung COE lang and then the latest payslip, yan, pwede nang maging document na isasubmit niyo pagdating sa consumer loan. Pero sa business loan, usually, hinahanapan kayo dyan ng business permit, diba? Yung income tax ninyo, yan, kasama yan. And then when it comes to the term of the loan, shorter, sa business loan kasi, kaya shorter term siya, kasi nga, pag pinahabaan mo pa, mas lalaki ang interest rate ninyo. Kasi higher yung interest rate sa business loan kasi malalaki lang talaga dyan ang pwede ninyong ma-loan. While sa consumer loan naman, medyo maliit lang. Kaya para mabawi, kumbaga, mas matagal yung term na nilalagay nila. Yan. So these are examples of business and consumer loans. So ano-ano yung mga situations na example ng business loan, ano naman yung consumer loan. So we'll try to distinguish. Ayan na po. Yan. So sabi dun sa una, wants to borrow some money from the bank. So since sa barbershop, sa business niya, natural, it's an where Mr. and Mrs. Arce wants to borrow money from a bank to finance the college education of their daughter yata. Ano nangyari? Napa-forward. Para ma-finance yung education. Yan, consumer loan po yan. And then the 10-year-old house, house improvement, again, it's an example of a consumer loan. Okay, so ganun lang natin ma-distinguish ang business and consumer. So some problems on business and consumer loans. But before that, so tandaan po natin na payment natin. And then we have the mortgage, the mortgagor, the mortgagee, the fixed rate mortgage, the obligation, and the outstanding balance. So pag sinabi natin mortgage, it is a loan from a bank or other financial institutions that help a borrower purchase a home or a car. So usually, ito ay tumutukoy yung mortgage natin sa consumer loans. Ano po? The mortgagor, siya yung nagpapahiram, and then yung mortgage, o siya yung ang tawag doon, nagle-lend ng mortgage. Ayan. So this is an example. So parang hindi ko pala siya nalagyan kagabi kasi when it comes to business and consumer loans, kung natatandaan ninyo, this is just the formula that you have encountered dun sa una pa natin, di ba? Gagamit ninyo sa pagsasolve ng problem sa business and consumer loans. So we have here this problem. Mr. Garcia borrowed 1 million pesos. Interest is 7%. The loan is to be repaid in full after 1 year. How much is to be paid after? This is the principal, di ba? And then sabi natin, laging yung may percent symbol is the interest rate, which is yung R natin. Ayan. And then, may ilan sa inyo nagtanong ng ibang formula na pwede nyo gamitin dun sa nakaraan nating lesson. Instead of using yung I raised to M over M, yung iba ang ginagamit is R over M. So parehas lang naman yun mga anak, mga notations lang yung iba-iba. Okay? Tapos yung iba, instead of using N for M times T, so nagkakaroon sila ng M sub 1 and M sub 2. Okay? So alin yung M sub 1? Usually yung M sub 1 po natin, yun yung right after yung payment. Halimbawa ay 500 pesos every month. And then yung isang M natin, yun yung after naman nung rate natin. Halimbawa 7% compounded quarterly. Yan. So yung distinction ng dalawa. Ano po? Kasi yung iba siguro nanood ng mga videos, additional videos pa sa YouTube. That's why na-encounter nila yung ibang formula sa pagko-compute ng future value, ng present value. But then again, same lang po. Notations lang yung nababago-bago natin. So in this case, yung rate natin or yung I, so ginamit na natin ang I is 7%. So that's equivalent to 0.07. And then since you're going to pay that after a year, so our N is 1. Okay? So this is just probably an example of simple interest lang. Okay po? So to compute for the future value, we have this formula. Therefore, after a year, after borrowing 1 million pesos, you're going to pay, or Mr. Garcia has to pay 1,070,000 pesos. Ano po? So, ibig sabihin, sa 12 months, a total of 12 months, ang naging interest ng 1 million niya is 70,000. Okay? Probably, pag titingnan natin, it's somewhat malaki. But if you're going to use that in a business, so yung return naman ng business ay mako-cover up yung interest rate na yan. Kaya, kumbaga, sa mga entrepreneur, so yun yung tinitingnan nila bago sila humiram ng pera. Ano pa? So, with the loop, yan. Okay, so again, solvings that you would encounter, sorry, this is raised to n ha. Ay, alam niyo naman yung formula. Yan, you need to show your complete solution for you to be able to have a score on that. Kasi pag wala kayong solution, automatic answer lang ang gagawin niyo, half lang po yung makukuha ninyong score. Let's say, for example, total of 30 points at ang sinubmit niyo lang is just the answer, so magkakaroon lang kayo ng 15 points. So malaki yung mababawas po doon. Okay po. Yan. So this is the learning task for naman for week 5. Okay na po, na-screenshot
Yes,
na mga anak. Yan. Thank you, Miko. Thank you, Hubert. Okay, so let's now proceed with yan. The first topic on the logic part of Gen Math, which is about what I encounter. Okay, so these are the objectives for the first topic for module. So we need to define what a purpose. We will identify whether a certain sentence or okay. So are you familiar with this too? Mga K-drama fan dyan? Ano ang K-drama to?
Startup po.
The startup. Yan. Okay, so mamimili si Dalmi. Ano? Kanino ba kayo dyan sa dalawang yan? Ano ang name nito? Sino to?
Sinandosen po.
Ito?
Han Ji Pyong po.
Yan. Yan mga fan. Ako ang mas gusto ko dito si Jipyong talaga. So, okay, so let's try ano. So we will play fact or bluff. So you know naman pag a fact, if a statement is a fact, then you have to choose dosan. So tingnan natin. So what's the first statement? First statement. So pwedeng i-chat, pwede po mag-unmute kayo ng mic. First statement, you are taller in the morning than in the evening. Totoo kaya yun? Ano sa palagay ninyo? May science kaya magpo-prove na you are really taller in the morning than in the evening? Is it a fact or a bluff? Actually, meron itong katulad, yung size ng paa. Hoy, Joro. Yan. So, is this a fact or a bluff? Ano kaya? Si Dosan or si Jipyong? Ayan, dami ng mga nag-chat. O, Dosan daw, sabi ni Hannah. Bluff daw naman, sabi ni Miss Elia, ni Margaret. Bluff din, sabi ni Jamir. Okay, Jipyong din daw, si Uriel. Si Melvin, ganun din. Okay, actually, the answer is... Yan, it's a fact. Yan. May science behind that. Ano? So yun nga rin yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na this is similar with the size ng feet. Parang sa morning, maliit ba? Parang ganun. Ano? Tapos sa evening, sa umaga yata siya malaki, then sa evening siya maliit. Yan. Okay, let's have the second statement. By the age of 18, your brain stops growing. Is this a fact or a bluff? Is it Dosan or Jipyong? Sige, chat lang po kayo ng inyong sagot. May Jipyong na. Puro Jipyong na. Pero kinumpleto pa ha. Well, ang mga sagot ninyo ay puro bluff. Let us see. Actually, this statement is a fact. Yan. Kay Dosan pa rin. So, hindi ko na babasahin yung ang tawag doon, yung article about that ano, pero sabi nga po at the age of 18, nag-stop nang mag-grow yung ating brain. Parang little na lang yung mga concepts na pumapasok sa atin. Parang, kaya siguro din, isa din yun sa naging basis na at the age of 18, yung sinasabi sa mga babae, di ba, na yung nagmamature na enter na sila sa matured age. Okay, let's have the third statement. Sourness is the taste in the tip of the tongue. Ayan, so alam ko naman ito ay, opo. Oh, ito alam na alam nyo yan. Yan, it's a, hoy, bakit may namdosan pa akong nabasa? Di ba nasa tip ng tongue natin ay?
Pautang mo na lahat sa akin. Papautang mo lang naman.
Sweetness.
Sweet siya, di ba? Oh, tapos yung nasa ka-opposite ng sweet, yung pinakang dulo doon, malapit sa tonsils natin, bitter naman. Yan, nasa side po yung sourness. Hindi siya nasa tip ng tongue. So, kaya siya ay kay Jipyong. So, it's a bluff. Ano po, anak? Yan. Let's have the fourth statement. There are more Chinese than American. Is it a fact or a bluff? Sabi ni Kuya Mac, it's a fact. Dami na nagchat-chat. Okay, it's a fact. Yan. Actually, it's a fact, di ba? Mas marami talaga ang Chinese kesa sa American. Tsaka isa sa mga oldest civilization, di ba, ang Chinese. Yan. So let's have the last statement. Melatonin gives color to our skin. Ayan, yung mga science, ano dyan, mga favorite ng science. Is it a fact or a bluff? Atan, anong sagot mo? Si Andaya, si Enan ay ano daw, fact. Si Melvin, melanin po yun. Kaya nga, is it Jipyong or ano? Dosan. Si Melvin. Yan, it's actually, nasa na ang lalabas na muka? Yan, Jipyong, it's a bluff. Yan. So sabi nga melanin yung nagbibigay color, not melatonin. Okay. Tingnan natin. Okay, so that's all for fact or bluff. So bakit natin, what's the connection of playing this fact or bluff? Kasi when it comes to the proposition, dito natin kailangan tingnan if it is true or not, or true or false ang statement natin. Because when we, yeah. As we define proposition, it's actually a declarative sentence that is either true or false or but not both. Hindi pa pwedeng yung dalawang statements ay or a proposition itself ay parehas na true or parehas na false. Okay? But not both. Ano po? It's either one is true or the other one is false. So sabi nga, a true proposition has a truth value of true, while a false proposition, false naman siya. Okay? So usually in a proposition, we use a small letter. Okay? So we have here an example of a proposition. Proposition A is the proposition, it is getting clearer. Okay, sometimes we can also use the notations for propositions as P sub 1, P sub 2, P sub 3, or whatever. As long as you are using a small letter, then you can denote a declarative sentence as a proposition. Ayan. So, syempre, hindi ko na nalagyan ng animation ng aking mga X. Yan. So, here is an example of a declarative statement. Ano po? So, grounding is beneficial. This is an example of a proposition. Okay, but then again, the truthness or the falsity of this statement depends on someone. So kung ano yung pinaniniwalaan, if grounding is beneficial to a person, diba, depende po yon. May iba't ibang nagiging epekto ng grounding. Pagka halimbawa, sinabi ng inyong magulang na, oh, you're grounded. For some, beneficial siya, but for others naman, nagiging negative yung effect ng grounding. Ano po? So, again, this is a declarative sentence. That's why it's an example of a proposition. Okay? Let's have the next one. Yeah. Forgive and forget. Is this a declarative? No, of course. Kaya nga may X na tayo, di ba? So, since once pa lamang dun sa nagsala na siya dun sa definition ng proposition na declarative because this is an example of an imperative. Parang inutusan ka, di ba? To forgive and forget. That's why this is not an example of a proposition. Okay? The third one, happy birthday. Yeah. It's an example of an exclamatory sentence. That's why it's not an example of a proposition. Yeah. Let's have the third one. There is no stronger than the heart of a volunteer. It's an example of a proposition, especially nowadays in the case of our frontliners, yung mga medical employees, yan. Medical employees natin, medical health workers, yan. They really have a strong heart para maging volunteer. Ano? So again, this is the meron akong kasabay na online class. Yan, medyo hinaan ko ng konti ha. So yung truth niya or falsity, the truthfulness or the falsity depends again on somebody na merong strong heart. Ano po? Okay. The next statement, yan. 3 factorial is equal to 6 over 2. So this is an example of a proposition. Okay? So sasabihin niyo na, ma'am, it's not a declarative. But if we will try, di ba? Kasi usually in math, we use symbols. But if we will try to convert that into a statement, di ba? Ang pwede maging statement natin dito is that in words, isusulat natin in words that 3 factorial, which is equal to 3 times 2, di ba? Is equal to 6 over 2. Or 6 divided by 2. So pwede natin siyang i-translate into words para siya maging isang declarative sentence. But then again, this is a false statement, a false proposition. Okay? So unlike ni A at ni D, where the truthfulness and the falsity depends on the one, di ba? On the one who is affected with the grounding session or even with a strong heart. Yan. But this one, it's automatic false. A proposition, a false proposition. Why? Because a 3 factorial is equal to 6 and not 6 divided by 2 or 3 in simpler terms, di ba? So false kaagad siya. So dito, ang distinction na kaagad natin, you can establish at once the falsity of the proposition. Let's have the next statement. Never mind, I am just joking. First, is this a declarative? Yes, it's a check. Okay? But then again, yung proposition natin ito is parang ang hirap establish yung truthfulness or at saka yung falsity niya. Why? Kasi 'di ba sabi, never mind, I am just joking. Kapag ka sineryoso mo na i-never mind yung something na sinasabi niya, opposite naman yung kasunod na statement na I am just joking. So alin ba yung paniniwalaan mo? Ano? So again, hindi naman natin tinitingnan yun dito as long as it's an example or it is a declarative sentence, then it is an example of a proposition. Okay, same with P sub 1. So this is a declarative. Okay, so if an individual is great, then there is a teacher behind. Right? But then again, not in all cases. Ano po? Kasi sometimes sa individual, pwede na natin, the individual himself can establish kung siya ay great or not. Yan. P sub 2, either a person saves before spending or spends before saving is an example of a proposition also. The next one is also an example. So medyo madami na yan. So lahat po ng example natin dito, the last statements are examples of proposition. Po, maliit or mahabang statement, as long as it is a declarative sentence, then it is an example of a proposition. Okay, let's have module 14, which is all about simple and compound propositions. Mabilis tayo ngayon, konti lang po. Ayan. So tingnan natin, simple or compound. Siyempre, parang din siyang simple sentence and compound sentence, di ba? In English, pag sinabi natin simple sentence, ano siya? It is consist of how many subject, how many predicate. Diba? One lang siya. One subject, one predicate. But when it comes to compound sentence, it can be more than one subject and more than one predicate, or it can be 2 subjects, 1 predicate, or it can be 1 subject, 2 predicates, or both ay 2 or more. Diba? Para masabi natin compound. So it's in the same case when we say simple and compound propositions. Pagka sinabi nating simple, Identify natin yan. This is a simple proposition. It is a proposition that cannot be broken down into more than one proposition. Parang it's incomplete if you will try to break down the sentence, the declarative sentence. Ano po? Yeah. While a compound proposition is a proposition that is formed by joining simple propositions using logical connectors. So sa compound, you can separate them into two simple propositions, meaning one sentence can stand alone and then the other one can also stand alone. By using a logical connector, then yung dalawang simple propositions na yon can form a compound proposition. And what are those examples ng logical connectors natin? So we have here, let's say for example, we have here the propositions P and Q, okay? Using the word not, this is an example already of a logical connector. Using the word and, it's a logical connector again. So sa compound propositions natin, having the two propositions P and Q, once they are connected by the logical connector and, then we already have a compound proposition. Same case with the logical connector or. Okay? And then lastly, the logical connector if then. Okay? Meron din tayong logical connectors like if and only if. Yan. So those are some of the logical connectors that you will encounter as we go along with the discussion of logic for this morning. Again, these are just some logical connectors. Okay, let's have these examples. Actually, this last part of the topics on business, in general mathematics rather, wala na tayong computation. Ano po? So unlike before, may mga computation, eto, kailangan gamitin nyo na yung logic part ng brain niyo. Yan. Wala na siyang computation, pero yun, kailangan may mga logic na gagamitin. So let us take example 1 na dun sa ating distinction kanina, whether it is a proposition or not. So we have here, grounding is beneficial to a person. Okay? So this is an example of a simple proposition. Ano po? Yan. This one is not an example. So yan yung mga examples natin kanina nung nag-identify tayo. All of these are examples of simple propositions. Si A, nasa na? Si D, si P, at si Q. Pero si B at si C, sabi nga natin kanina, they are not examples of propositions. So only A, D, P, and Q are examples of simple propositions. Okay? Sa simple proposition natin kay D, gumamit tayo ng logical connector na no. Yan. Pero with A, P, and Q, yan. So wala tayong logical connector na ginamit. Okay? Okay. Let's have the last part. Yung P1 to P3, P4 are all examples of compound propositions. Yan. So sa compound proposition, kung makikita natin, we can sabi nga, di ba, pwede nating paghiwalayin. Okay? So ano yung logical connector? Anyone from the group? What's the logical connector used for P sub 1 proposition? Yes, Uriel?
If then po.
Yan, the if then. Yan. If and then the then here. Okay? How about in the second statement? Yan, tinanggal ko muna yun ha. Anyone? What's the logical connector used? Yes, Aryan?
Or po.
Or, yeah, we have here. Okay, i-underline ko lang ha. Okay, if, then. So in the case of P sub 1, we have two propositions. The first proposition, if an individual is great. Okay po. The second proposition, there is a teacher behind. So as a P sub 2, the first proposition, a person saves before spending. And then the logical connector is or. Yan. Then the second proposition is that one spends before saving. So kung makikita ninyo, di ba, sila ay pwedeng paghiwalayin into yung simple propositions natin. How about P sub 3? What's the logical connector for P sub 3? Yes, Hubert?
Not po.
Okay, so it's not. So baka malito dun sa may guhit kanina, yun ay sa previous slide natin. Ayan. So we have used the word not for P sub 3 as a logical connector. How about for our P sub 4? So medyo nakakalito yung P sub 4, ano? Madaming ginamit.
Ma'am.
Yes po.
If then
If,
then
then,
naka If, then, at, end po.
Yan. And then ito na ulit, may if then na ulit tayo dito. If then and end. So dalawang beses ginamit yung if then and then yung end natin. Okay po? Yeah. So those are some of the logical connectors that you will encounter with the discussion of simple and compound propositions. Yan. Okay. So ito hihiwa-hiwalayin natin. Yan. So the first proposition, an individual is great. The second proposition, there is a teacher behind. Yan. If A, so in symbols, instead of having the long, diba? The long sentence and B. Kasi nga A represents the sentence, an individual is great, while B represents there is a teacher behind. So for us to have a compound proposition using, or a proposition itself using if then statement, then this piece of one proposition can just be denoted by if A then B. Okay po? So let's have P sub 2. Anyone who can identify the two propositions for this? What are the two propositions for P sub 2? Anyone? Uriel. Okay, go, Uriel.
Preposition A po ay a person saves before spending. Tapos
Okay.
B po ay one spends before saving.
Yan. So, thank you. So, if we will use O, C, and D. Okay. Didiretsuhin natin yung mga person saves before spending. And then proposition D, one spends before saving. So, ano yung gagamitin natin na short notation for this sentence, for these propositions? Nico?
If C, then, sorry po. C or D po.
Yan. C or D lang. Yan. Kasi wala naman tayong if na ginamit. Siyempre, this one is our C statement and then the second one is our D statement. Then we have C or D lang. Nasusundan po yun? Okay. So for P sub 3, anyone who wants to anong tawag natin doon? To separate the two propositions, So what are the two propositions in this case? Anyone from the group? Geb. Parinig nga ng boses mo, Geb. What are the two simple propositions for P sub 3, Geb? Ayaw ni Geb. Let's have Miss Martinez. Wala. Anong nangyari? Oh yes, anak. Ikaw wala kang mic? Oh, let's have na lang Alay Salceda. Maingay dyan sa lugar niyo. Okay lang, sige anak. Buti na nakakapakinig ka. Alay, what are the two simple propositions for P sub 3? Samuel Pornobe. Bea Angela Bertina. Parang dami ko nang tinatawag, walang nag-unmute ng mic O sira din daw ang mic ni Alay. Alay kasi naman ang iyong picture meron kang sige lang. O anyone from the group na lang. Ang dami ko nang tinatawag, wala pang nag-unmute ng mic. Oh, what's the simple proposition? The simple component of this proposition. Walang gustong umimik. Oh, actually, with P sub 3, that statement itself, yan lang po eh. Ang tawag natin doon, i-chunk into symbol. Ano po? Siya na po mismo yon. Denote natin siya as X, then the logical connector not, so it will just be yan. Huwag kayong mako-confuse kasi ano lang naman siya, isang diretso lang siya. Let's have P. Elumba. Francine?
Yung
Yan.
propositions po ano? No? Diretso na po ba yung sa Y? Yung sa he or she UTID. Tapos kasunod po if a person is entitled to obtain a PWD ID. Tapos po he or she is disabled po. Tama po ba? Ma'am,
Ma'am, naka-off po mic.
nakamit po kayo, ma'am.
Using, ayan. Tinig na?
Opo.
Yan. Yan. Wala nang mic. Okay, again, pagka nakita nyo, tinig ako.
Kinig
Hello.
po, ma'am.
Opo,
Yes
ma'am.
po.
Kapag ginamit nyo kasi yung if-then statement, so yung if at saka yung then, you don't need to include that pagkuha ng simple components. So sa case ng P sub 4, the two simple components of our proposition is that the first one, ayan na po yun, a person is disabled. Ano? That's the first proposition. Okay, tinanggal natin yung word na if. And then the second proposition, PWID. Yun lang yung dalawa na simple components ng proposition natin. So kahit pa meron siya dito, di ba? A person is proposition W natin. And then binaliktad lang kumbaga. Ano? Pero pag ginawa natin siyang symbol, yung una natin, so mangyayari if, and then itong statement natin is Y. If X, then, if Y, then Z. Kasi ito yung Z natin. Yan. And, if Z, then Y.
Opo, ma'am.
Nasusundan nyo? Yan. Yung hanggang part na to, bago mag-end, di ba, we know that the statement, a person is disabled, is denoted by Y. Yan. Kaya siya, if Y, and then nandyan yung then na connector natin, then connector, and then this is statement naman, he or she is entitled to obtain a PWID is our Z. Yan. Kaya ang una, if Y, then Z. And then the logical connector again, and, ayan na siya. We have the logical connector if, yan, if, then what is this statement? A person is entitled to obtain a PWID. That's our Z. Kaya if Z, yan, then, if then statement natin, this one naman is our Y statement. Okay po? So, ganun lang po yung pagpapaikli ng ating mga propositions. Ano po? So, yung P sub 4 natin, P sub 4 proposition can just be shortened as if Y, then Z, and if Z, then Y. Okay? Any question with this? Wala.
Ma'am, yung P3 po, hindi po
P3.
ba kung not X po, dapat po ang X ay it is a shame to greet the utility worker, blah blah blah. Tapos tsaka po ang symbols ay not X. Kasi po, kung sasabihin po nating not X, tapos ito po yung X, mangyayari po ay it is a shame.
Sa
Tama
P
po.
sub 3 kasi anak, given mismo yung statement. Kasi di ba pag binigay mo si P sub 3 as it is a shame to greet the utility worker, yan. Simple proposition lang siya. Wala siyang gumamit ng logical connector. Kaya pagka ang ginamit ay yung not, diretso talaga siya na embedded dun sa ating declarative sentence. Kasi kapag ang declarative mo ay yung isa lang na positive, so it's another siya. Kumbaga ay established na yung kanyang yung kanyang truthfulness. Nasusundan?
Opo, sige. Okay po.
Yun. Kasi pag binago natin yon, another case siya ng proposition. Yung statement na it is a shame, kumbaga. Okay po?
Opo, sige po.
Kaya diretso siya na kapag yung not ang ginamit, nandun na siya. Okay, mga anak? Okay, so let's proceed with this. So let's try to identify whether the statement is a simple proposition, a compound, or not, or neither. Okay? And if it is a compound proposition, yan, ito yung sinasabi ko, Melvin, na yung P sub 3 natin is an example of a simple proposition. That's why siya yung diretso na kinukunan natin. Kaya in symbols, yung not na siyang diretso. Okay? But if it is a compound proposition, yun na, yung pwede na siyang mahati, na yung isa, pwedeng hindi siya maging negation ng isa, ano po, or pwedeng yung if-then statements ang ginamit. Okay? So let's try the first one. If bad company ruins good morals, then one should be mindful in choosing friends. Yes, Miko?
Compound proposition po. The logical connectors are if then. The first statement is bad company ruins good morals. Then second statement is one should be mindful in choosing friends.
Okay. Kaya kung inonotate natin ito as our A, yung first statement na binigay kanina ni Miko, if A, then B. Kumbaga. Ano? So this is an example of a compound proposition. Thank you, Miko. Let's have the second one. Sinong nag-raise ng hand? Yes, Melvin?
Not.
Not P. Okay. Next, let's have the third. Oh, nauna si 5. Nagsalang animation ko. Okay, number 5 muna. Study hard and rest well. So this is an example of what? A simple, a compound, or not? Anyone from the group? Parang mga nag-hesitate kayo magsagot with number 5. Yes, Uriel.
Not po.
Okay, so it's not. Not an example of a simple or either a compound proposition. Kasi hindi lahat na gumagamit ng logical connector na and can be considered as a compound proposition. So try to separate. If one part of it can stand alone, or sabi natin may meaning siya, you can get a meaning from it, then it's an example of a compound proposition. Diba? Parang study hard, it's an imperative. Inuutusan ka. Rest well, ganun din. So since both na pagka chinap natin siya into two ay imperative sentences, then it's not an example of a proposition. Okay po? Kaya not siya. Yeah. Pabalik daw siya. 5, 4, 3. Let's have example number 4. There is wisdom in spending for needs, and it makes sense to think at least twice before giving in for wants. Wait lang po ha. Ayan. So going back with this, is this an example of a compound, a compound or a simple proposition? Mga anak? Si Miko ulit. O Miko,
Compound po, ma'am.
compound. The logical connector.
And po.
And
First statement po is there's a wisdom spending for needs. Second po ay yung it makes sense to think at least twice before giving in for once.
okay. And then the third one, ponder on the sacrifices of your parents. Yeah. So it's just a simple, not or compound. Ponder on the sacrifices of your parents. This is an example of what kind of sentence, Miko?
Imperative po.
Imperative. That's why this is not a proposition. Diba? Okay po. So, ganun lang po ang pag-identify ha. Okay, let's have the logical operators. Ayan, di ba? Na-encounter ninyo yung logical operators like not, if, then, the or, the and. Yan. So, in logic, may mga symbols po tayo for those words na parang, ayan na. So, these are the different logical operators, the negation. So, yun na po yung may not, the conjunction, the disjunction, the conditional, and then the biconditional. So, dito papasok yung not, and, or, ano pa, if, then, and then if and only if. Yan. And then identify the logical operator used in a proposition. And then lastly, perform different types of operations on propositions. Okay, so you need to remember all these logical operators because by next week, we will be using this. Ano, medyo mahaba-haba ang gamit nito sa next week na discussion natin. Ayan. So the first logical operator is the negation. When we say negation, it's a proposition which is denoted by P and then yung may paalo na ganun. Yan, which is read as not P. Okay? And is defined through its truth table. So, paano po yung truth table? Ito po yung truth table since we are establishing the proposition P, di ba sabi natin, a proposition can be true or false. If proposition P is true, then its negation, of course, is false. And if the proposition P is false, then its negation is true. Okay po? So, in symbols natin, ito po siya. Ayan. So, this is the example of a truth table. Ayan. Okay po? Yan ang table ng negation. Okay. Let's have the conjunction. Okay, examples muna. Quality determines the price. How are you going to negate this statement? Yes, Melvin?
Quality does not determine the price.
Yan. Quality does not determine the price. Okay. Let's have N sub 2 proposition. Anyone? Other hands, please. So there are different ways by which you can negate a statement. Yung opposite ba niya? Benedict, can I hear your voice? Yung sinabi kanina ni Melvin, like yung quality does not determine the price, there's another way of saying that. Diba? Pwede rin namang ilagay mo na it is not true that quality determines the price. So that's the negation of that. How about itong N sub 2? Yes, Miko, how are you going to negate N sub 2 proposition?
Ma'am, di ko na po kung pwede to. Learned po ba to or learner po?
A learned.
A learned is one who is uneducated po.
A learned is?
One who is kumbaga po opposite po.
Uneducated, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ang ninegate mo ay yung word na educated, tama ba?
Yes po.
Yan. So ginamitan mo ng suffix na UN. Okay, ano pa yung other way of doing that? Benson. Ano pa yung another way of negating N sub 2?
Ma'am, a learned is not one who is educated.
Yan, pwede rin yun, di ba? A learned is not one who is educated. So ginamitan naman niya ng word na not. Okay po, yung logical connector natin. Okay, yung mismong logical connector. Let's have N sub 3. F of x is equal to x squared is a cubic function. Anyone? Lance?
Fx equals x squared is not a cubic function.
Yeah, so that's one. Diba? F of x is equal to x squared is not a cubic function. Ano pang pwede? Pwede pang it is not true that f of x is equal to x squared is a cubic function. So, yun po yung mga ways kung paano tayo mag-negate. Ano? So, an obtuse angle measures 180. Pwedeng lagay natin, an obtuse angle not measured or does not measure 180 degrees. So, negation na niya po yun. As long as you're going to use the word not, ha? Oh. Again, in our session for this morning, pag sinabi nating negation, you need to use the word not for you to negate the proposition. Okay? Yeah. Let's have the second logical operator, which is conjunction. This is the symbol for conjunction, inverted V. Ano po? And the word conjunction, nagiging siyang conjunction if you will use the word and. Yan. Yan. Pag and, it's a conjunction. Okay po, in symbols is this. So we have to establish the truth table of the propositions P and Q and establish the conjunction of the two. So yung P natin, so kapag yung P natin ay true, and then Q is true, then the conjunction of P and Q is true also. If P is true and Q is false, then the conjunction is false. And if P is false and Q is true, then the conjunction of P and Q is F or false. If they are both false, then false siya. So ito lang yung kailangan nyo tandaan pagdating sa conjunction, na kapag parehas na true yung statement, true lang siya. All the rest, false na. Ano po? Yan. Ganon lang ha. Pag ginamit si and, ang nagtutrue lang sa kanya if they are both or if the two propositions are both true. But kahit pa mabaliktad, false na po yun. Okay? So, tingnan natin. Look at this example. Given the propositions R, S, and T. Okay, ayan siya. So how are you going to give the conjunction of the following? Let's have number 1. There is a profit in physical exercise. So alin po yun? And it is best to exercise holiness. So how are you going to write that in symbols for conjunction? Anyone? So pwede po kayo mag-annotate or you are allowed to use the annotation button kung sino man ang gustong sumagot. Yes, Lawrence. Ay, hindi pala na-admit ko pa lang pala si Lawrence. Akala ko si Lawrence sasagot na. Margaret, anak. Oh, how will you put that into symbols? Lawrence, gusto mo sumagot, anak? Pwede po mag-annotate. Anyone who wants to answer, press the annotation button and then write your answer for number 1, for number 2, and then yung 3 and 4 you can tell me kasi in words naman si 3 at 4. Anyone? From other sections, please. Let me call on Miss Kaniema, Marimay. Uriel, ikaw na, anak. Go, Uriel. Yan, sige. Okay. Thank you, Uriel. Kinig ako?
Opo, ma'am.
So since, di ba, the first statement, there is a profit in physical exercises, our proposition are, so we use the word are, then since it used the logical connector and, so yun po yung inverted V na medyo, ano pa lang, serial. And then the second statement, it is best to exercise holiness since siya ay proposition S, so yun na lang po yung ginamit natin. Okay? Okay, let's have the second one. Lance. Annotate ka na rin, Lance. Okay lang yan, Lance. Sige, diretso lang. Ganda ng team mo, Lance. Sige lang, Lance. Okay lang yan. Bakit in-erase mo pa?
Ma'am, naglalag po sa akin.
Naglalag. Idediretso ko na yung sinusulat mo, ha? Pero yung, ayan, go. Yan. Thank you, Lance. Ayan. So, di ba yung proposition R natin, there is a profit in physical exercise. But since with number 2, gumamit siya ng word na no, kaya yung negation symbol natin na itong paalon, nilagyan natin for our R. And then yung logical connector natin na end is translated with this symbol. And then since this is the proposition P, yun na po yung P. Nasusundan, mga anak? Okay. Now, let's have 3 and 4, which is just the opposite of 1 and 2. Sa 3 and 4 naman, ita-translate mo into sentences. Okay? Let's have number 3. Yes, Shello?
There is a profit in physical exercise and a person must not be holistically fit.
Yan. Thank you, Shello. That's correct. So ano ba yung statement R? Di, yun yung isusulat nyo. There is a profit in physical exercise. The logical connector and since may negation symbol tayo, so you need to include the word not for proposition P. So a person must not be holistically fit. Clear po tayo doon, mga anak? Ayan. Let's have the last one. Miko, number 4.
There is no profit in physical exercise and it is best to exercise holiness.
Yan. So may negation na naman tayo, kaya there is no or there is no profit. Diba? There is no profit in physical exercise and it is best to exercise holiness. So with these examples, ginamit na natin yung negation combined with the conjunction as logical connector. Okay? Erase ko lang. Yeah. The next one is the disjunction. Kung ang conjunction ay and, ang disjunction naman ay or ang ginagamit. Okay po? So kapag we have two propositions, P and Q, P or Q, so yung V naman as symbol for disjunction. So yung truth table naman natin, kabaliktaran. Ano? Di ba yung sa conjunction, kapag dalawang true yung proposition, siya lang yung true and the rest ay false. Sa disjunction naman, baliktad. Yung dalawang false ay false, then all the rest ay true naman. Okay po? So kapag ang P ay true, ang Q ay false, ay true din, true lahat yan. Whether T is true or P is true, Q is false, true din siya. Pero kapag parehas sila na false, dun lang magpo-false. Okay po? Sa conjunction, ang only true ay kapag true parehas yung two propositions. The rest ay false. Okay po? Yun ang mga dapat yung tandaan, ha? Okay, so let's have these examples. Given the propositions T, U, Y, let us try to put in sentence U or Y. Anyone? Anyone who wants to translate? Number 1. Nag-aantay ako ng ibang kamay. Daniel Andrea Karandang anak. Mga tulog pa ba yung iba kaya pag tinatawag ko? Daniel anak. Si Benson, nag-online ka na pala ulit. Nag-online ka na pala, Benson. Sige, Benson, ikaw anak.
Ma'am, number 1 po, no?
Oo. Benson, ikaw ay mag-online na rin?
Ma'am, ako po yung modular, pero sabi po kasi pwede po mag-attend ng mga modular.
Okay, sige. No problem.
So,
Sige anak.
old songs soothe his ears, or old fashion is inviting to his eyes.
Okay, so that's correct. Diba? So pinag-combine lang natin yung U and Y connected by the logical operator or. Okay po. Let's have number 2. Thank you, Benson. Let's have number 2. Ayan, meron na siyang inclusion of the negation and the conjunction, then the disjunction. Tatlo. Anika, anak. Can you unmute your mic? Mark Daniel, Aragon. Kuya Mac.
Wait lang po. He is not an old soul. And old songs not suit in his ears. Or old fashion is inviting to his eyes.
Correct. Correct mga anak. Yan, di ba? Okay, thank you. Not he, so ginamitan niya, he is not an old soul. And this symbol is for end. So he is not an old soul, and old songs not or do not, pwede yun old songs do not soothe his ears, or old fashion is inviting to his eyes. Yan. Okay, let's have number 3 in symbols. Anyone? Yes, Enan. Sige anak, mag-annotate ka na. Sa number 4, pwedeng sabay mag-annotate. Si Enan sa number 3. Sinong gusto sa number 4? Clarence, anak, kaya mo mag-annotate? Enan, anak, Enan, may or ka dito, Or, ano yung symbol natin for or, Enan? And then for number 4, sige, Sean, anak. Sean Jimena, for number 4 ha, mag-annotate ka, anak. Enan, balikan natin. Ano yung symbol natin for or? Is it the inverted V or V? So, wag malilito ha. Pag nagkamali sa symbol, pag nabaliktad, mali na po yun. Sean, dyan ka sa may... sige. Okay lang, Sean. Dyan may space. Continue, Sean. Enan, tapusin mo anak yung sa'yo. Yung symbol ng disjunction natin. Pag conjunction, inverted V. Pag disjunction, yan. Ito ay end. Ito ay or.
Ma'am, hindi po maalis yung eraser.
Hindi na ano anak?
Yung eraser po, di po maalis.
Hindi maalis.
Hindi ko po maibalik sa
Ulit
pen
anak,
na
i-X mo
eraser
yung
lang.
ano. I-X mo yung mga lumabas. Tapos pindutin mo ulit yung annotate. Yan. Ayan. Thank you, Enan. Yan. Sabi, he is an old soul. Kaya ginamitan natin ng P. May or tayo. And then yung you natin, old song, soothe his ears. Ayan, see you. So nilagyan ng parenthesis kasi dalawa na yon. Okay? And then yung end natin, ayan na po siya. Ayan. And why. So wag magkakalituhan ha sa end at saka sa or. Okay? Then kay Sean naman, he is not an old soul. So we have here the negation of E. And then end yung ginamit. Kaya inverted B. And then either. So ito yung ginamitan niya kasi yun yung pinag-connect ng or. Ginamitan natin ng parenthesis. And then may not kay Y. Negation niya. Not Y. And then or you. Okay, that's correct. Thank you. Dali lang intindihan, no? Sino nagre-raise ng hand? O kanina pa yan. So clear ko lang ha. Thank you mga anak for answering. Let's have the next slide. The next logical operator is conditional. Sa conditional, ito naman yung gumagamit ng if-then statement. Ano po? So in symbol natin, kapag nakita nyo itong symbol na to, ibig sabihin if-then siya. So sa if-then statement, ang false lamang ay kapag ka si P ay true at si Q ay false. All the rest ay true na siya. So again ha, the only false sa conditional operator natin is that if P is true and Q is false, then if then of P and Q is false. All the rest ay true. Okay po? So again ha, yung negation madali lang naman. Siyempre, kapag ka true, false yung negation niya. Kapag false, true yung negation niya. Sa conditional, ang true lang ay kapag parehas na true. Sa ano yung kanina? Conjunction, kapag parehas na true, yun lang yung true, all the rest ay false. Kapag ka naman sa disjunction, kapag ka yung parehas na proposition ay false siya, all the rest ay true. Okay? Sa conditional naman, kapag true lahat, maliban kapag si P ay true at si Q ay false, yun lang yung magpo-false doon. Okay po? Tingnan natin yung example. Yan. So we have here the propositions X, Y, and Z. So let's try to convert to sentence. Our example number 1. Anyone? Madali lang yun, di ba? Si X and Z lang. Nico?
If dioxins are found almost everywhere, then dioxins are culprit to many diseases.
Okay. So if then statement lang yun. Let's have number 2. Thea, number 2. Thea, Araya. Hazel Ann Cabo. Judiel Valdiabilia. Drew Francisco. O sige, Miko, ikaw na.
Ma'am, ako pa.
Sige na, oo.
Plastics, bleach paper, and most commodities does not contain the chemical wait lang, mali pala. If plastic, bleach paper, and most commodities does not contain the chemical dioxin, then
Ulit.
Ay, ano ba 'to? Ay, mali pala ako. Tama pala yun. Ma'am, ito. Plastics, bleach, paper, and most commodities
Anak ha, if then
does not
statement
contain.
yan, conditional.
Ay, dalawa pala, no?
Oo.
Mali po pala ma'am yung nasa isip ko. Dalawa palang if and then.
Ayan, salamat sa mga nagsasagot sa ating chat box. Sa mga nagpa-participate, very good po yan. O, sino anak for number 3? For number 2. If then
Ma'am,
statement.
try ko po.
Sige, Lance.
Ma'am, if dioxins are not found almost everywhere.
Anak, not why tayo, not why. Not why. Hindi not
Sorry po, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry po, baliktad po pa. If plastics, bleach, paper, and most commodities does not contain the chemical
Do not.
dioxin. I do not po. Sorry po.
Dalawa yung subject natin.
Do not contain the chemical dioxin, then dioxins are not found almost everywhere, and dioxins are not culprits to many diseases. Tama po.
Pwede. Ayan, isa yun, di ba? Kasi ninegate mo si X at saka si Z. Pwede rin naman na if plastics, bleach paper, and most commodities do not contain the chemical dioxins, then, pwede rin naman siyang, then it is not true that dioxins, yung kay Lance naman kanina, ginamitan niya ng not ay dito. Yan, are not found. Yan. So marami, di ba? As long as manigate natin yung isang statement. Okay? So how about number 3 and 4? Sino naman mag-annotate for number 3 and 4? Yes, Arian. For number 3, Arian, ikaw ha. Mag-annotate ka, anak. For number 4. Arian number 3, Uriel number 4. So pwede dito ka na sa space na taas, Uriel. Mga anak, Arian, na gumagamit tayo ng parenthesis dun sa dalawang statement na pinag-connect ng may and at ng may or ha. Tanggalin mo anak yung open and close parenthesis mo kay Z. Sige, tinanggal mo lahat. Okay, go. Okay. Mag-parenthesis ka, Arian, before ni X. No, anak. Arian, before ni X. Okay. Okay. Anak, bakit may Z ka pa doon? Ano, nasa na siya? If then, they are found everywhere. If dioxins, so Z ito. Then, they are found almost everywhere. Si X yun. Containing chemical or dioxins. Or, dioxins are culprits to many diseases. Uriel, you're correct. Arian, tingnan mo, yung isang sentence mo, di ba dioxins sa pinag-uusapan? Tama ka na, ZZ. Then, sino itong tinutukoy na they are found? Dioxins yan, di ba? Dioxins are found everywhere. So that is your X. Or mo, ito yung symbol mo. Aling statement ito that dioxins are culprits to many diseases? Bakit may Y at saka may Z ka pa? Alin na lang Aryan ito? Ay, wait lang. Mali pala ako ng tingin, sorry. And found almost everywhere, yun na nga si X. And plastics, bleach, and most common commodities, this chemical. Okay, na yun pala si Y, sorry. Or, ito yung or na lang. Aryan. Si or na symbol na lang. Yan. Okay. Yun. So, ganun lang po yun na, mga anak. Susundan nyo lang.
Ma'am, question po about dun po
Sige,
sa
anak.
number 4. Ang dun po sa, di ba po dun po sa second statement,
lang.
then it is not true that either plastic, bleach, paper, and most commodities containing this chemical or contain this chemical or dioxins are the culprit to many diseases. Yun po bang pag-negate po nung not ay dun lang po sa unang proposition po or kasama na rin po dun sa pangalawang proposition po dun sa dioxins are the culprits to many diseases?
Nasaan yun? Dito yan, anak.
Yes po,
Dito
ma'am.
lang sa una, kay ano lang, kay Y lang talaga. Kasi another proposition nyo ito eh. Ito yung, kumbaga, ito yung proposition X, itong buong ito. Yan. Ano? Kaya, yung negation lang natin ay dun sa statement na plastics, bleach, yan, hanggang dun sa chemical, nandun yung not. Hindi kasama si dioxins.
Okay po, ma'am. Thank you po.
Kaya yung negation ay dun lang kay Y, hindi kasama si Z. Okay mga anak? Nasusundan po kaya? So yun ang conditional ha. Yung last operator natin is the biconditional. Yan. So ito naman yung symbol natin, if and only if naman ang ginagamit dito. Kapag if and only if, biconditional siya, yan. Yung dalawang true at false, pares na true yun, pero pag isa sa kanila ang naging false, false na rin yun. Yun lang po yun. Ano? So pwedeng ang gamitin ay if and only if, or pwede rin na it implies. Yan. In words natin for the if, for the biconditional symbol. Okay. Given this one, anyone who wants to convert into sentence or statement, our number 1. So combination na siya nung negation, conjunction, disjunction, conditional, and biconditional. 5 logical operators na. Anyone?
Ma'am, question po.
Sige, anak.
Dun po sa, pareho po bang dun sa conditional yung P implies Q, tsaka po dito sa biconditional P implies Q din po?
If, kumaga dun sa conditional, dapat may if P, it implies that Q. Parang ganun. Sa biconditional, diretso siya. Wala siyang if na ginamit. P implies Q. Babalik
Okay.
ako. Ayan, dun sa definition siya, ano? Ay, wala pala, sorry. Sa biconditional, wala yung implies. If and only if lang talaga. If and only if, yun. Yun lang yung ginagamit, ha? Ang P implies Q ay sa conditional lang. Sa biconditional, if and only if lang yung gamit natin. Okay, sige. For number 1, Edsel. Number 2, Lance. Sige, anak.
Ma'am, try lang po dahil baka po mahaba po kasi.
No problem.
Not only physically handicapped individuals can be called persons with disability, if and only if psychosocially disabled persons like those with chronic illnesses can also avail PWD ID, and if knowledge on the wide extent of who a PWD has yet to be spread, then there are numerous benefits which come along with owning a PWD ID.
Okay, so that's correct. Thank you, Benson. Lance, number 2.
Ma'am, dahil lang po
number
medyo
3.
magala lang po.
Wait lang, Lance. Kung sino man yung gusto mag-annotate sa number 3. Jane, repeal. Nasaan si Jane? Yan. Tama-tama. Jane, ikaw na nga mag-annotate for number 3. Habang nasagot si Lance, anak ha, sige na, pwede ka na magsulat. Go, Lance.
Ay ha. Ma'am, kinig po ba?
Opo, anak.
Only physically handicapped individuals can be called persons with disabilities. And psychosocially disabled persons like those with chronic illnesses cannot also avail PWID if and only if knowledge of the wide extent of who a PWD has not yet to be spread.
Okay, that's correct. Thank you, Lance. Okay, nagsusulat na si Jane. Okay, thank you, Jane. That's correct. O baka maano nyo to ha, ito ay J, ang sulat ni Jane. J, and then yung symbol natin sa if then. If and only if statement. Yan. And then negation ni G. Okay? So kasi ang J natin, yun yung first statement. And then nandito yung if and only if natin. So symbol niya yan. Not only. So nandun po yung negation symbol. Okay mga anak? Any question? Magte-10 na. So learning task number 3 for week 6. Ito po yun. Para dun sa mga modular ha, iba yung nandun sa libro pero ito yung gagawin, ipopost ko na lang. Benson, di ba nagmo-modular ka? Iba yung nasa libro ha, gumawa ako ng ibang ganito. Yan. So ito po yun, paki-screenshot, isi-send ko na lang po ulit sa GC. And then our learning task number 4, ito po yan. Yan. Kayo yung gagawa ha. Susulat kayo about your any topic na mapipili niyo dito para bang i-discuss ninyo on how to, halimbawa, napili niyo a division of fractions. You're going to discuss how to divide fractions, the steps by steps, but then you need to use logical connectors. Ano po? So may mga propositions kayo doon and then logical operators gagamitan ninyo. Remember the logical operators, yung negation, yun na yun, yung 5. Okay, not just the logical connectors ha. Siyempre, para maging logical operation siya, kailangan gagamit ng logical connector. Okay, mamimili lang ng isa and then yung rubric po nito nandun sa module na ipapasa ko mamaya sa inyong Google Classroom. Okay mga anak? Okidoki? Any question?
Ma'am, dito po sa learning task 4 ay yun po ba yung ano po? Parang yung pag-explain po namin ay naka-paragraph or para pong per ano po ma'am, per proposition po. Yung kumbaga,
Depende
ito po
sa
yung
inyo.
first condition, second
Kasi
condition.
di ba nakalagay ay use propositions. Wait lang. Tingnan ko yung tingnan ko ulit yung rubric niya kasi you need to follow the rubric para mataas yung maging ninyo, maging score. Wait lang po. Balikan ko lang. Kasi hindi ko na in-include dito sa aking PowerPoint. Sa rubric kasi nakalagay sa rubric ay ewan. Joke lang. Malayo pa pala. So, ang criteria natin ay content, structure, topic, and then language. Kapag the process is discussed completely with at least one example, manifest an understanding of all prerequisite skills for yung content. Pwede kayong gumamit na ng yung katulad ng ginawa ba natin kanina. Halimbawa, A, simplify or reduce the fraction to lowest term. B, proposition B, find the least common denominator. Ano po? Tapos halimbawa, tapos pagdating dun sa steps na ilalagay ninyo, pwede na siyang pwede nang halimbawa ay ang A kunyari ninyo ay fraction is in lowest term. Ilalagay ninyo ay if not P, ibig sabihin if not in lowest term, then find the GCF, parang ganon. Ano? So, kailangan makikita natin yung different logical operators. Kasi yung sa language ninyo, kapag hindi kayo gumamit ng logical operator, ang score nyo lang sa language lang ha, doon sa isang criteria, ang score nyo lang doon ay 1. Kapag gumamit naman kayo uses propositions with logical operators but inappropriate, hindi tama doon sa steps na nilagay ninyo, 2 lang yon. Kapag if you use emphatic statements or appropriate logical operators for propositions, 3. And then yung highest doon, yun. Basta basahin ninyo ha, magta-time na, may PE pa kayo. Follow the rubric na na doon sa module na i-upload ko later. Okay mga anak, para hindi kayo mawala sa scoring ng learning task number 4. Any other else? So stop sharing ko na po. You may or may not open the camera. And I'll stop recording na rin.